the baseball talk. And one of the cool things that MILB has put out, they put out their top 50 prospects. But one of the other things that happened yesterday, was the Hall of Fame Veterans Committee had voted. They voted on their Hall of Fame inductions. So the nice thing about it is that, every once in the Veterans Committee gets it right. Every once in a while, they get it wrong. And they miss somebody. However, my buddy, not personally my buddy, but Ron Santo, being a Cub fan that I am, being the Cub fan that I am, Mr. Santo did not make it in yet again. And, I know we kind of talk about the minor leagues here a little bit, but nonetheless, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about Mr. Santo, Mr. Ron Santo. And I think Napper's back with us. Napper, hopefully everything is cool in your world, if we can get you back on the air here.
Yeah, I'm back. Everything's okay. I just wanted to make sure. Usually my sister doesn't call me this late. She saw my light on in my garage and wondering what I was doing.
Well, there you go. You're on MILBradio.com. And anyway, so I was talking to, I was saying about Ron Santo. Ron Santo missed it. Now, too bad Dallas isn't here, one of our other normal contributors, Dallas. He is not a big Ron Santo fan, doesn't believe he belongs in the Hall of Fame. And you know what? I guess you kind of go into this thing about the Hall of Fame. And we've had discussions about the Hall of Fame. I know Elwood's got some comments about the Hall of Fame. I don't know if Al out there's got some comments about the Hall of Fame. But the Baseball Hall of Fame, we've kind of gone round and round on this. And we had some heated discussions last summer when they were actually, the regular Hall of Fame was voted. And we talked in depth about how some of the people were stubbed and some of the people got in and whatnot. But I don't know if Ron Santo, if you look at his numbers, he is definitely in the category of Hall of Fame, but like I said, like we've said before in the show, if you even have to think twice about it, if you go, does he belong in the Hall of Fame, then maybe he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, if you know what I mean. I mean, it's one of those things where it's either a yes or a no. And I don't know, have you ever given your comments on Santo, Napper, about whether he should be in or not?
No, I don't think I have, and maybe that's on purpose because I don't know enough about him other than his numbers. I've seen his numbers, but it was so long ago. He played so long ago. I don't know that much about him other than his numbers, and personally, I think there's way more to getting in the Hall of Fame than just numbers. I mean, obviously numbers are the huge thing, but there's so much more, and I just don't know that much about him. I know he played on a bunch of really bad teams, but maybe by no fault of his own, but he played on a lot of real bad teams. That doesn't help his case. And maybe, I don't know if this is off the wall, but would we be even talking about Ron Santo at being a Hall of Fame candidate if he wasn't the Cubs broadcaster for so many years? Like, it kind of kept it
That's funny that you say that, because that's the next point I was going to make. Are we just feeling sorry for him? I mean, the guy has gone through a lot of adversity. He's lost both of his legs, and he still is broadcasting baseball games, and he still gets up, and he played the game with diabetes his entire career. Actually showed that you can play through that, and you can play through certain ailments and still, actually still do real well in the major leagues. So I think, is that part of it? I mean, that's an excellent point. Does it come to the point that we just kind of feel sorry for him, and now we want to put him in the Hall of Fame, or does his numbers really warrant the Hall of Fame vote? And that's kind of you came right down the road where I wanted to go on that, because I really think that maybe we're just kind of feeling sorry for him. You know what? And I respect Ron Santo. I respect what he does. I don't think he is a very good color analyst on a baseball game. He is a passionate. He's a fan. He comes from the mold of Harry Carey. But when I'm listening to a Cubs game, sometimes I kind of am like, "What are you talking about, Ron?" You know what I mean? That type of a thing.
Yeah, so. I just there's probably several other players that played in the same era that he does that maybe have similar numbers. That just maybe when they retired, they're out of the game. They're not a broadcaster. They're not in the front office. They're not a scout. Someone not like such in the limelight. Not that Ron Santo's really in the limelight, but people all over baseball still know of him because the adversity he went through, and it's pretty public, and the fact that he's still in the game as a radio broadcaster. I think he's kind of stayed in the public's eye, I should say, not the limelight. He's still in the public's eye, so he's still, thought about. But, whether that warrants a Hall of Fame induction, I don't think so.
Yeah, and CBK Radio Land, actually, CBK's in our chat room now. Well, welcome, CBK, as well as Elwood. Elwood said that Harry Carey, basically that Ron Santo is Harry Carey Part 2, and that Elwood said he did it all drunk. So maybe Ron, I don't think Ron Santo's drunk. I don't think you can drink when you have diabetes. I think that kind of ends your life. So I don't think Mr. Santo is drunk. He's just very passionate about the Cubs, as you would expect any fan to be of a particular team. And Al in our chat room on the Ucaster just happened to mention that Ron Santo was a .277 lifetime hitter with 9 All-Star appearances, and that's the one that really always gets to me, is the 9 All-Star appearances, because that is pretty impressive. I mean, and if you look at his, if you take his numbers and compare him to the other third baseman in the Hall of Fame, it's close. But once again, we go to that, we draw that line. Do we say, if we even have to say, it's close, does he make it? We should be able to say slam dunk yes or slam dunk no, and that line has to be drawn somewhere. And even if we move that line down to allow Ron Santo in the Hall of Fame, then somebody below that line is still going to be ticked off saying that, hey, my numbers are comparable to Santo, so I should be in. So I just don't know. I think sometimes the line has to be drawn, and it just looks like that Mr. Santo is not going to get in. I mean, even though he did get the most votes out of any of the Hall of Famer committee votes that he's gotten in the last 4 times that he's been eligible for it. So we'll just have to see with that. So, anyways, moving on, 646-652-2962. And Napper, were you done talking about how the Indians front office people and their player development people just suck? Are you done talking about that?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I could talk about it longer, but that was just. Like I said, I was reading this article in the paper about a month ago, and I'm like, man, I got to clip this out and talk about it on the Tim Kuda Show, MILB Radio, because it's just a grade A, perfect example of this. I mean, the kid's 24 years old. It's now or never. I mean, if they give him a chance to be the Indians' third baseman for the 2010 season, now he's 25 already. And I know that's still young, but it just blows my mind how I just think they keep players in the minor leagues too long. Get them up there. If they're such a hot commodity, get them up there. Let them sink or swim. You know what I mean? Look what the Rays did with David Price. They didn't leave him in the minor leagues too long. They
you're awesome, dude.
Let him sink or swim.
You talk right. You bring me right into the next subject. David Price. That's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the top 50 prospects MILB.com put out. Their number one guy, David Price. How is he a top prospect? I mean, after he comes in and does what he did in the playoffs, how do you even make him a prospect anymore? I mean, wouldn't he still be? I mean, I'm just saying they're wasting a spot. He's coming out and going to make the Major League roster next year with the Rays. You know it. How would he not? Even if he has a cruddy spring training, how would you not make it? I mean, after his performance in the playoffs.
Absolutely. I mean, the only question I have for David Price right now is whether he's going to make the team as in the bullpen or as starting pitcher. That's really the only question I see right now. So yeah, that was going to be my number one question. How is this guy still considered a prospect after the postseason he had last year? And yeah, there's no way he doesn't make the Rays opening day roster.
And maybe it has to do with just rules and stuff like that, where since he really his major league credit time, whatever. I mean, he didn't even play. He did play. He actually was a September call-up. We actually talked about that in detail. He was a September call-up, but maybe because of his service time, he doesn't even qualify as a rookie. Like next year will be his rookie year, so maybe that's why they look to him as a prospect still. But I mean, of course, it's funny because you look at this stuff. I mean, and they really break it down. They're top 10 prospects, and guys that we've mentioned before on the show. I mean, David Price, number 1. Matt Wieters, number 2. We've talked in detail about Wieters. Wieters had an unbelievable Arizona Fall League, and he just